All right, everyone, we start off talking today about Little Marco. It's Rubio, back from the dungeon of never being talked about. He's a fair-weathered friend of the Constitution, so we'll be investigating his new attempt to allow the DNI and FBI to essentially put people on a watch list that'll prevent them from owning a firearm based not on charges, not on convictions, but just mere suspicion. It blatantly violates the Second and Fourth Amendment. First and foremost, however, let's talk about the pinned comment on YouTube. As usual, for the first video of the day, there are 4 links in that comment to other video hosting sites that I use if you're watching on YouTube, sites that do not algorithmically throttle me. Now, Marcorubio is someone I've never really been a fan of. It's funny because there's still people who think that I'm a Republican. Of course, you'll remember Marcorubio. That was definitely a shining moment of the 2016 election. Correctly predicted that he would go nowhere in his presidential aspirations, and I hope he never does based on this. Essentially, this is an extension of the basic concept that's been in use for a while called the no-fly list. Now, nowhere in the Constitution does it explicitly state that American citizens shall not be abridged in their right to get on an airplane. Nonetheless, I think that the ability of the government to prevent you from traveling internationally is already bullshit. There have been times when toddlers have been placed on the list accidentally based on the topical similarity of their name to a terrorist, and it became a big issue, but the ACLU and groups like that have always attacked it from the racial perspective of, well, you just put them on the list because their name sounds Islamic or something. Really, it's a violation of the Constitution. Little Marco wants to go a step further than the red flagging that's going on with like the red flag laws, the no-fly list, and have a no sales for guns list. Now, can I ask you this? This does not involve the normal legal proceedings of you think that there's a crime, you investigate, you indict a person, potentially convict them. In that case, if a person has been actually convicted of terroristic acts, if they're a felon, they can't own a gun. The founders, by the way, would have had no problem with this for the majority of felonies, and for certain, by the way, minor misdemeanors if they are repetitive in nature. They would have classed the person as a criminal lunatic, and they would have been glad to deprive them of various constitutional rights. Nowhere, though, in the minds of anyone who was involved with the writing of the Constitution, would there be any possibility that these individuals would say that the government, they're technically a bureaucratic group that has been empowered by legislative process, not even the government itself, should be able to deprive that right from people based merely on extrajudicial suspicion. The problem that we've run into, and the reason why this is so dangerous, is the problem we ran into with like the no-fly list, is that oftentimes it was very, very difficult, no matter how good your lawyer was, to actually get off the list. It's just sort of like with FISA courts. Normally in judicial proceedings, you have the ability to cross-examine witnesses, to know the skinny about what you're charged with or what you're thought to have done, and that process is carried out with all sorts of fact-finding, and information is made available to the defendant and things like that, and they can lawyer up and they can challenge it in court. You can't do it with FISA. You can't do it at least directly, and the government very reluctantly gets involved in looking into its own no-fly list. Why would it not be the same for this new extension of the same idea, which is that the government should unilaterally be able to suspend the Second Amendment, essentially? If the government can simply declare that they have a suspicion of wrongdoing, or of potential wrongdoing, they suspect that you have done something potentially wrong. It's not evidence. It might be based on what they consider evidence. There's been no court case. A grand jury hasn't chosen to indict or anything like that. And it's horseshit. The problem is that the normal legal procedures that people use to petition for charges to be dropped, and they say, well, there shouldn't be an investigation. The prosecution is being overzealous. There's corruption involved. They can allege this in a normal court proceeding. Can't do that. Not with this style of proceeding. And so anyway, Little Marco, I'm assuming, understands the Second Amendment, having been, if I remember correctly, a lawyer, not an ignorant individual, simply ignoring that. They're using, and link in the description, and I happen to believe this is definitely the case, they're using the panic around the January 6th riots to try to sweepingly extend government power. By and large, so far, they've been kind of unsuccessful. It's like after 9/11, it was like within 24 hours, everyone went haywire, and it wasn't really a politicized event. One thing that people need to make plain is that 9/11 is fundamentally different from the Capitol riot, not just for the reasons why, like, Trump fans would say, well, we're sorry some people died, but it was just a riot, and, Antifa does it worse every day. That's true, but that's just partisan. The thing you need to understand is 9/11 wasn't a partisan issue. Bush's support soared up into the 80s, undeservedly in the immediate aftermath. The government then passed Patriot Act and all these other horrible things that we now have to systemically attempt to dismantle because they violate our laws and our way of life. But it wasn't partisan. In fact, that's why it got so bad. The fact that the response was glowing praise for the government involving itself in war and torture and getting rid of the Fourth Amendment, essentially, is why those things were successful. In this case, most Republicans are holding the line. Most Republicans are saying, okay, fucking get over it. AOC can do her whole Me Too thing and dovetail in her alleged attack and stuff. It's not really working so well. That, by the way, is a good thing, because it forces, if the Democrats want to use it for anything, it's strictly a partisan show. That's about all. Peace out.